Welcome to episode 1 of Bird Dog Gaming's The Unlockable podcast. We're just going to get right into it, but real quick, I wanted to say in this episode, you'll hear us say BDG podcast a few times because we weren't entirely sure what we were going to call the podcast at the time of recording, but The Unlockable podcast is the official name, and that's what we'll be calling it from episode 2 and so forth. So without further ado, here's episode 1. Welcome back to Bird Dog Gaming, guys, and welcome to the BDG podcast. Joining me as co-host will be my good friend Hannah, who a lot of you already know as Game Girl Advance SP on Instagram. She's been collecting for like 6 or 7 years. She has a really solid collection, and this first episode is going to be all about how we got into video game collecting, what our first gaming memories are, and what you can do to get a gaming collection of your own started. So let me introduce you guys. Hannah, welcome to the show.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me be a part of this podcast. I'm happy to be your co-host, and I'm looking forward to this incredible journey.
Yeah, really happy to have you on board, Hannah. So in general, on these podcasts, we're going to be talking your ears off about gaming news, video game collecting, and really just gaming in general, whatever we feel like talking about. So let's go ahead and dive on into it. Hannah, how are you doing?
I'm good. Can't complain.
Have you been playing any video games recently?
I have. I've been trying to 100% complete Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and it's taking me so long to find all those stupid Korok seeds.
I can imagine. Didn't you say you were playing Astral Chain too?
I did. I finished that one. Took me like 20 hours, or probably 25 hours. Wasn't that long, but it was an incredible game. Loved every second of it.
I am currently loving Astral Chain myself. I've put a good 10 hours, I'll say, into it. Very solid game, and I feel like once it came out, it just kind of like people aren't really talking about it anymore. Haven't heard anything about it recently.
Yeah, that's true, but it's such an incredible game.
So aside from Astral Chain, I've actually my friend just got me the Mummy Demastered on Switch. Have you heard of it?
I have not. It
came out in 2017 by the same people that made Shantae, the WayForward team. And it's a digital only game on Switch, PS4, Steam, everything. And I got it on Switch and I'm loving it. But I can tell you it is a total clone of Super Metroid, which is not a bad thing. If you're going to clone a game, I'm glad it's a good game like that. It's awesome. And I would totally recommend people check out some gameplay. It's currently on sale. I think it might be over now by the time this podcast comes out. But I got it for $12, and it's usually $20 on the eShop.
Good deal.
And I didn't even buy it. Like I said, my friend gave it to me. All right, Hannah, talk to me about your first ever gaming memory.
So my brother is 3 years older than I am, so the first system that we ever got was a Nintendo 64, which came out in 1996, and I wasn't born until 1997. So he got it, he was 3 or 4, and so I was a baby, probably. And we grew up playing Super Mario 64, obviously. How classic. But I used to watch my brother and my father play for hours and hours and hours. And I didn't really play because, I was a toddler, so I probably wasn't going to be very good. But I watched them play, and it blew my mind. And ever since then, I've been collecting games for, all sorts of Nintendo systems.
So you just stick to Nintendo consoles in your collecting, or what?
As of right now, yeah, but I do have a bunch of, I have the first Xbox 360, I have a bunch of Sega consoles, the Genesis, the Saturn, the Dreamcast, every PlayStation except for the PlayStation 4, but I mainly just collect for Nintendo now, because, they're the best.
Right. So those are just kind of consoles you've picked up at Goodwill over the years, right?
Yep, Goodwilling, thrifting, you name it, garage sales.
And we will get into all of those things later when we're talking about how you can start your own collection. My backstory is kind of similar. I was about 3 whenever I got my first console, and I was born in 96, and my first console was the Super Nintendo, so a good generation before you, and it was something that my dad and his brothers would usually spend a lot of time playing. They would play Street Fighter and just have a blast at it. I was usually playing Super Mario World myself. I have all my original Super Nintendo cartridges, so I know that I had like this trash Tecmo basketball game. I had Super Mario World, Street Fighter 2. I had some Daffy Duck Dodgers type game. And yeah, I probably stuck with 6 Super Nintendo games for a long time. And when I was about 5 or 6, maybe 7, I got the Nintendo 64. So this is like 2000, 2001 at this point. I think that math adds up. I had those 2 consoles for the longest time. And I think the first time I got a console like during its life cycle was not until the Wii. So I got the Wii right around launch.
Yeah, me too.
Right. So I had all the Nintendo consoles as a kid. I got every single... Well, no, okay, I didn't have the NES. Didn't get that until I became a collector. So I got the Wii around 2006 and got myself a Wii U a little bit later, whenever that came out. Had tons of handhelds over the years. My first handheld game was probably Pokemon Red, even though I had a Game Boy Advance. Never had a Game Boy. And yeah, that's kind of where it started for me. As far as collecting goes, I never sold my games as a kid. It was very rare that I ever traded in a game or sold it. Even if I didn't like it, it seemed like I would just hold on to my games. I don't know if that was like a young collector Christian doing that back then or what, but I was able to start my collection, like really hardcore collecting video games, about 5 years ago. I was in college at that point, and I had started to get a savings account going, and I was getting games that I'd always wanted to try out as a kid, but didn't have the money to back then. So one of the first things I bought when I first started collecting was Street Fighter 4. I was like, man, I really like Street Fighter 2, and I would really like to play one of these newer Street Fighter games. That sounds fun. And I think that's how it all starts for collectors. I think you kind of start with games that you grew up with, or sequels to the things that you grew up with, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it.
I remember getting Sonic and All-Stars Racing on the Wii, and I don't know what I was thinking, because that game is just not good, but I loved Sonic as a kid. Didn't even have a Genesis. Like, for no reason, I loved Sonic as a kid, and I got that game for the Wii, and played it like twice, and I was so fed up with it. Like, why would I play that when Mario Kart was available?
Yeah, that's just silly.
So what about you, Hannah? When did you know for a fact that you were a game collector? When did that happen for you?
Well, I've always kind of started like collecting games. Like, even when I was younger, I'd beg my parents to go to GameStop or whatever, the local retro game store, and I was like, I need this game. Like, I need to go buy it right now. But it wasn't until I got my license and I started driving, like 16 or 17, that I actually like hardcore collected.
Right.
I was going to a thrift store, and I'd been there a few times, but I had never found anything, and I saw a Sega Saturn, of all things, and it had all the cords, all the cables,
Wow.
everything, and it was like $15, and I was like, dude, I think I need this. Like, I've never heard of this. What is this? But I think I need it. I knew what Sega was, but I wasn't well versed in all their consoles, whatever.
Yeah.
And I brought it home, tested it out, tried it. It was awesome. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to start collecting now, because it's something that I enjoy. And after that point, I went to Goodwills. There was 7 or 8 Goodwills around my area, usually no further than an hour from my house. And I would go religiously, like every other day, to at least one of them. And then that's when my collection really started growing. Like, outgrowing my room. It was ridiculous. I had so much stuff piled on the floor, but I was like, I need it. I want it. So yeah, probably 5 or 6 years of hardcore collecting, but I've been buying games ever since I was young.
For sure. And it's no secret that Goodwill is a place for people to get games now. Like, even if you are just now getting into game collecting, you think you're even aware of that, but Goodwill was not something where I expected to start getting games from. I think YouTube helped fuel my fire for collecting a lot. I started to look at the Metal Jesus videos where they're like, how do you start a game collection? Or here's some tips for starting a game collection. And I did it with a friend, actually. We both started to collect together. She's one of my best friends, and we really just were not good influences on each other's wallets.
Oh, God.
So we would start going to Goodwill together. We got introduced to the amazing deals of eBay. We both had Instagram accounts. That's another thing that we're going to need to dive into. Is Instagram is a huge part of this and what's encouraged me, and I think you too, Hannah, of just collecting in general. But yeah, we would start going to Goodwills together, and that wasn't a good idea because we'd be racing to get out of the car, and I was always driving, so I would always get into the Goodwill second. She would just hop out of the car and just...
Oh God, and she'd grab everything.
Yeah, the worst. But no, it was a great time. Don't really do a whole lot of Goodwilling now anymore. I think it's just school and work gets in the way, and I don't know. They really need to build one next to my house. That's what I need.
That would be nice, like your next door neighbors.
But the best way to get yourself in the door at Goodwill is to just start talking to these employees, right?
Yes.
You
absolutely.
want to make friends with them. I think game collecting can oftentimes be all about connections. You want to hit up your family, hit up your friends, and be like, hey, do you have any old like GameCube games? Like, you know that console we used to play when we were kids? Do you have any games left? Like, do you want to drop those off at my house for free? That'd be awesome.
Hey, you want to let me have those? Thank you.
I think that's a great way to start out. I know I did that. You know, I was hitting up cousins, family members, whatever. So you said that your brother was the one that kind of got you into gaming. You were watching your dad and your brother play. Is he still into gaming at all?
Other than the occasional Fortnite or PUBG or Apex, not really. I mean, he could probably still crush me in every game that he plays because he's just naturally talented, but no, he doesn't really game that much anymore.
Really? You think he would crush you if you guys sat down and played Smash right now?
The original Smash on Nintendo 64? Absolutely. I don't know what it is, but he's like a god when it comes to games.
So, do you have stories of when you started to hit up your family members and ask them for games or anything like that?
Yes, actually. When I started my Instagram around 3 years ago, my aunt actually texted me, and she said, like, I don't know what this is, but it kind of looks like what you collect, what you post on the internet. And it was a Tommy Hilfiger, the yellow Game Boy Color.
No freaking way.
Yep, with Zelda Ocarina of Ages for the Game Boy Color, and that was like the only Zelda game that I needed left. I had Seasons and I needed Ages. And she sent me pictures. She's like, is this something that you collect? And I'm like, yeah, please give it to me now. And it was actually my cousin's. And she regretfully, I don't know, took like a staple or whatever, and she carved her name in the back. So that's like the only thing that kind of sucks. But, you know, it was my cousin's and now it's mine. So
she did that as like when y'all were kids, or?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought she sent you the picture and then was like, I'm gonna make sure that she knows who gave her this.
Definitely not. I don't think she would do that now. But yeah, she was probably 7 or 8, I guess, when it came out. So, yeah.
That is crazy. I mean, I don't even know the backstory of that Tommy Hilfiger Game Boy Color. I mean, I've seen it on Instagram before, but do you know?
Honestly, I didn't even know that was a thing. And then she texted me a picture, and I was like, what is that? Where did you even get that? From like a Macy's? Like, I don't know.
You still don't know where it came from, like originally?
No.
That's
I have
a good
no
thing
idea.
to look up. I'm surprised I didn't know that.
It's so interesting. Weird brand deals.
Yeah, I know there's one with like a soccer team on it. There's a bunch of random Game Boy Colors.
And I know there's Toys R Us Game Boy Advances.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's Target Game Boy Advances, but not Tommy Hilfiger. That one just doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. So you mentioned Instagram. Let's talk about that. When did you start getting into the gaming community on Instagram?
Well, it was right after I'd graduated from high school. My collection had already started to grow because I was 18 by the time I graduated. Started collecting at 15. So it was 3 years of collecting, and then I'm not sure how I stumbled upon the gaming community on Instagram, but I did. And I think I was like, you know what? I could do this. Like, this sounds fun. Like, my collection's growing more and more every day. Why don't I document it? And, yeah, I just started on Instagram, and it was probably one of the best decisions of my life.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think my backstory is kind of similar. I think Instagram helped me a lot with, like, starting this collection, like, starting to become a hardcore collector. I might have said that already, but I found this guy, and I will totally shout him out, even if he never listens to this. His name is Nobhan Collections. He took some really just gorgeous shots. Like, he turned pictures of video games into freaking art. And this was like 2015, and now there's like a lot of people that do that. There's Retro Thunder, Super Sparkster. Like, people just take some great shots out there. And this guy was probably one of the first people to start doing that on the Instagram gaming community. He doesn't post a whole lot anymore, but I saw him and I was like, man, this is absolutely something that I want to be a part of. And got my friend that I was talking about earlier. She and I both started to just be a part of this community, started meeting people, started like learning from other people, started like selling things, buying things from people, and it was just like, wow, there's so many like-minded people out there like me. And it's just like I dove in head first now, and now I've got an entire game room of over 1,000 games, and I've just been doing this for years, and it's become a lifestyle. It's definitely something that I could see myself doing for years and years and years, and it's a lot of fun. Definitely made some great friendships over the years. I mean, I met you on Instagram, and it was pretty cool. We got to meet each other at Classic Game Fest here in Austin, Texas. That was cool. I met a couple other people from Instagram, and yeah, I mean, it's such a good community. And if you're not a part of it, I mean, you should at least, if you don't want to take pictures of your games, you should at least follow some of these people and learn from them. So many great people you can find just by searching hashtags and stuff.
Absolutely agree. There are some major stars in the community. Bring people together, bring happiness, bring joy, just all through video games and posting on Instagram.
And compared to other communities, I feel like there's really not a lot of drama.
No, actually, there's not. There's a few things here and there, but nothing like life-destroying or life-damaging or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. So talk to me about a game from your childhood that you think you put the most time into.
Well, there's one game which, it's not a console game, but I used to play RuneScape a lot. Shout out to all those RuneScape people out there. But one game that I used to play a lot was Pokemon Puzzle League for the Nintendo 64. I had a lake house, which sounds glorious. It wasn't. It's more like a shack. And it didn't have any internet or anything like that. And the only thing that there was pretty much to do there, besides fish, which I hate, was play video games. And one of the only games that I had there was Pokemon Puzzle League. And I played that game for hours and hours and hours on end. If you've ever played the game, it's a puzzle game. And each round that you win a badge, just like in Pokemon.
Oh,
and
wow.
There's different difficulties, and if you get to I can't remember what it's called, it's like expert or whatever, there's 15 or 16 badges that you can get, and it increases every time you go up in difficulty. So I played that nonstop.
How are Pokemon incorporated into that?
Honestly, they're not really. They're just kind of on the side, and they're Pikachu will be like Pika Pika every once in a while.
Right.
So it's basically just a puzzle game with a Pokemon skin, but it was great and I loved it.
Yeah, that's all it takes at that age. No, I actually haven't played that game. I don't think I played any of the Pokemon N64. Oh, Lord, no. I played Hey You Pikachu with my cousin, and that is not a good game. I don't even know if he had the mic, dude. I don't remember. That was not a fun game. I mean, for me, I definitely put a lot of time into the Nintendo 64. I mentioned that I had the Super Nintendo as my first console, and it's definitely solidified my favorite generation as being the 16-bit generation of gaming. But I spent a lot of time playing Nintendo 64. I played, my cousin and I used to play the heck out of Mario Party 3, freaking wrestling games. I don't even know. Mario 64 is a given. I didn't even have to mention that. One of my absolute favorite games from childhood is Rayman 2, and I played it on the N64, and it's just a fantastic game with a really dark atmosphere. I remember I didn't own it at first. I played it with an uncle who had a Nintendo 64, and we were playing it, and my parents said it was time to go home, and I got really sad, and my uncle ended up giving that game to me. And yeah, it's just little things like that you remember as a kid that really, you're like, man, that game was so fun. Let me start collecting more games from that series, right? And that's actually what happened to me with Rayman. I'm going for a complete Rayman set and learning all about the different Rayman variants, the different Rayman games that came out, oh, this game is really expensive on Atari Jaguar, stuff like that.
Oh, gosh.
Are there any series that you're going for a full set, or are you not really into set collecting?
I I'm not really that big on set collecting or collecting for, like entire system in general. I just think that's a big money pit, especially if I'm not going to play all those games. But that being said, I do have a rather large Zelda collection. And I like to, well, it started off being I wanted to collect at least one version of every game, whether that be like the Legend of Zelda collection set, which has Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, a promo of Wind Waker, plus the first 2 Legend of Zeldas. I wanted to own at least one so I could play through every single game. And then me being a super big Zelda fan and a crazy hoarder, I
gotta have it all.
went and bought so many different Zelda games. I have like 8 versions of Ocarina of Time, like 4 versions of Majora's Mask, but I don't know, it's fun. And I've actually played all the versions, so it's not like I just buy them to look at them. But yeah, other than that,
where would you say you bought most of those at?
Probably from eBay. I know I overspent, but it's Zelda, so I couldn't not.
Well, I think that will lead us into what suggestions we have for you guys as new collectors. I think we're going to share some tips with you guys for starting a brand new collection if you're thinking about becoming a video game collector or whatever. So, Hannah, what are some tips you have for the audience about people starting a brand new collection? What tips do you have for those people?
Some tips I have for people. Well, first I'd say go often. So for me, I went to Goodwill's, like I said, like every other day, at least one. If you don't go, you're not going to find anything. Obviously, if you have time, go as many times because you don't know, what's going to be there, what's not going to be there. Another tip I have is to make friends with the employees because they will really try to help you out. There was this one Goodwill like 45 minutes away, and I didn't usually go, but this guy was so nice. He worked in the back, so he was the one who like priced everything out, and I made friends with him, and every time I come in there, he'd seem so excited to see me, and he's like, I got you some more games, and he'd get all the games that he had, tagged or marked or priced or whatever, and he'd put them in a box, and he'd let me look.
That is a dream come true right there.
Before he put them on the shelf, and that was pretty awesome. I mean, mostly they were crappy games like Madden or whatever, but I really appreciated the effort, and I'd always buy something. Even if it was something that I didn't want, if it was like $3 or $4, you think, what, I could spare $3 or $4, for this guy to keep helping me out. It was awesome.
For sure.
Really good dude. Another tip. Probably, I don't know, Craigslist is pretty sketchy, especially for me. I'm a girl, so I don't often go on Craigslist. Runs a lot, but you can find some decent deals out there. I actually found Super Smash Bros. Melee for GameCube on a Craigslist ad, and it was a sketchy part of town, so I had my brother come with me. But yeah, it was disc and case only, so there wasn't a manual, but it was like $20, and I was like, how could I not do that? It's such a good deal. But definitely just look often, and if you really want something, just keep an eye out for it.
I can totally agree with that. And to branch off of the Craigslist thing, there are a ton of local meetup apps and that sounds kind of like Tinder, but we're not talking about hookups here. There's OfferUp, there's 5 Miles, there's Mercari. Oh no, Mercari is online like eBay. There's 5 Miles, OfferUp, and there's like another one that I can't even remember that I used to have.
There's Letgo.
Letgo's a good one, and something I want to say starts with a W. But anyways, those are all the same, and they're just like Craigslist, but Craigslist for some reason does not have an app, and I think what makes these other ones so great is that they're apps, and you can just message someone. Craigslist, you have to go online, you have to pray to God that the person you're trying to buy from has a phone number listed, otherwise you got to email them like it's freaking 1989, and you never know if they're going to respond. And I personally don't use Craigslist. I've seen people on Instagram score so well on Craigslist, but I stick to OfferUp. I personally don't like how 5 Miles is. I don't like how the app is laid out. I feel like I'll be on the recent and I'm not getting the most recent things uploaded, but I don't know. Maybe they've updated it. I haven't deleted it, so I don't hate it that much. Facebook Marketplace is another one that I've seen people score a lot on. That's another one. I just don't like how it's laid out. It's hard to maneuver around. I don't really like Facebook as a whole, but definitely check out Facebook Marketplace. I personally think OfferUp is the best one of them. I'm constantly on there. I refresh it several times per day, and I've definitely gotten some of my greatest scores from OfferUp. And like Hannah said, you definitely need to make connections with people. I mentioned it too, but Goodwill is a great place. If you can get somebody setting games aside for you like she did, that is just a dream come true. So many things come into Goodwills that just you would be so surprised to find out what comes through a Goodwill. I mean, she found a Sega Saturn. I've never seen a Sega Saturn there. She mentioned Madden being a trash game, and yes, that is very true. I'm sorry if you just bought Madden 19, Madden 20, whatever. I love Madden myself, but I haven't bought it in a few years. But when you're out collecting, you need to stay away from Madden 03 on the PlayStation 2. Okay, I don't care if you think you need to get a complete set. Even if the game is 99 cents, you really don't need it. I suggest buying games in lots, okay? So you're going on eBay, you're going on OfferUp, whatever. If you see a big stack of PS2 games, there's some good ones in there. Maybe a big stack of GameCube games. I really don't like collecting for PS2. I'm not going to use that as an example, but the GameCube has some really collectible titles. So you see a bunch of Mario titles mixed in with a few Maddens and maybe a freaking SSX Tricky or something. So Mario Sunshine's in there. You got Ninja Turtles. You got Mario this, Mario that. You want to go ahead and buy something, even though it's got a couple of Maddens in it. I think that's whenever you can start to collect the Maddens. Rather than going out of your way and spending money on them at Goodwill, you can just get them from a lot like that. So I would say save the money until you find a good lot. And the other reason I recommend picking up lots is because you can sell any duplicates you have in the lots. So rather than being like, hey, like messaging a guy and being like, hey, look, I've already got Mario Sunshine, but I need the rest of these games. Can you just sell me the rest of them? You need to just go ahead and buy the whole lot and resell the Super Mario Sunshine that you already have, because that's going to be money in your pocket to spend on other games or whatever. And that's usually what I do. And what else do we have, Anna?
Well, let me first say that plus if you buy lots and stuff like that, and there's, like you said, already a copy of Mario Sunshine, you can see what the quality of that one is if yours isn't great, and you can always swap it out for a better copy or a crisper manual or whatever like that.
Absolutely. Another thing you need to look out for, especially on eBay, is if you're buying Pokemon on the Game Boy Advance, is it a reproduction? She already knew where I was going.
Yep.
You need to be worried about fake labels, fake cartridges. Not so much fake cartridges. You need to be worried about the boards inside those cartridges, right?
Yeah, and they are everywhere. Usually with collecting, for Goodwills, I found that, some of them test them, but most of them don't. So I went and I bought a Pokemon Blue, and I was so excited about it. And dumb me, this was like, I don't know, one of the first Goodwill trips that I ever went on. I didn't check the pins like an idiot, and they were all corroded and all gross. And when I took it home, it didn't work. And then once it started working, I played it for like 20 minutes, and then of course the battery was dead, so nothing saved.
Oh,
so just be careful. Be careful when you go and when you buy stuff from Goodwill. Always look at the pins. Always look at the label. That one's pretty obvious, but definitely look at the pins and the condition that it's in. If it's all scratched up, chances are it won't play. So don't spend, if you see a Goodwill, don't spend $30 on a Fire Emblem that's completely scratched up, and then you get home and then it won't work. So always be mindful of that.
I feel personally attacked about the Fire Emblem being scratched up.
Yeah, I thought you'd like that one.
So going back to the Madden thing, it's not just Maddens that are bad. If you are out collecting and you're interested in knowing the value of a game on the spot, maybe you have a game you've never heard of right in front of you, you're definitely going to want to check the value online. A couple things I'd recommend for doing so are check the sold listings on eBay, which can be hit or miss because something might sell for way below or way above what it's really going for. But, you want to take the average, be smart about it. Another option is to go onto GameValueNow.com or PriceCharting.com, which are both websites that I talked about in another video. Basically, they tell you the going rate for a certain game, loose, complete, sealed, and graded, right? And the graded ones are usually not where the mark is. It's kind of hard to judge the current value of a graded game, but definitely you're not going to find a graded game at eBay anyway. So use these websites for just that. You want to see, is Madden 07 worth something? No, I'm not going to spend $5 on a game that's worth 5 cents. Just things like that.
Yeah, just be smart about it.
eBay is actually a really great resource. So aside from just buying things on there, you can check sold listings for what a game is going for, and you can also look at things you may have never heard of. So I know Hannah's not too much into this, but I'm really interested in variant collecting. So a game can come out for a console and it can have a first print, a second print, third print, whatever. And if you want to know more about this, you can check out my Mega Man video. But there's games that say player's choice on them. There's games that may have removed a word from the back of the box, just like little tiny changes, and sometimes the changes can be big. And there's a whole community out there that is just dedicated to variant collecting, and it's super interesting. And eBay is a great source for looking at variants. I highly recommend eBay for learning a lot of things about video game collecting.
Okay, so I'm really big on going to Goodwills and thrift stores and stuff like that, so I'm not really big on garage selling, but I know you are, so you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, for sure. I do a lot of Goodwilling, and I think I've just toned it down a lot over the last few years, but garage sales are very hit or miss, and they're just like Goodwill. You can go spend hours driving to different thrift stores and find nothing. You can go around 8 a.m. Saturday morning looking for video games at garage sales and find absolutely nothing. This morning I went to a community garage sale, found nothing. So I live in a very populated area called Houston, Texas, and there are people that want to see me fail, and they are trying to get the games for themselves. There are times where you're going to go and you're going to have an awesome day of garage selling. You might find a Sega Saturn, you might find a freaking Mario Kart for the Wii. I mean, it could be anything, but you need to be cautious of other collectors out there. The reason I found nothing this morning is because someone got there at 7 a.m. Okay, I had no idea this community garage sale was starting an hour earlier than I originally thought. So you definitely want to be on... This is a good thing to use Craigslist for. If you search garage sale or yard sale, there are people posting every single weekend, at least in my area, for garage sales throughout the entire Houston area. And a lot of times they post pictures, and if you're lucky, you'll see people posting, hey, I have these GameCube games for sale. Hey, I have this complete in box Super Nintendo. I mean, these are like extreme cases, obviously, but if you get lucky, you want to be the first person at that garage sale. You want to be there a little early. Something I didn't mention is estate sales are another great one. Mm-hmm. I've had one really awesome score at estate sales, and I've only been to maybe 3 or 4. If you go to... I don't know, you're gonna have to Google it, but there's an estate sale tracker website, and people post their estate sales, just like I was talking about with Craigslist on garage selling. Estate sales can be really good. They post tons of pictures, probably way more than anyone posts on Craigslist of garage sales, and they post lists of what they're going to be selling, and you want to go look through there, see if there's any expensive games, uncommon games. And the best way to do an estate sale is you want to be the first one in line. And if there are games posted and you live in a densely populated area full of collectors, there's going to be a lot of people in line with you. When I went to the one I scored at, it was because everyone knew from the pictures posted that there was an Earthbound there, and there was a bunch of other games there. And so I got there, I was the first one in line. I actually got these tips from a friend on Instagram, and he told me to bring a box, kind of like a shopping cart. You want to bring a box and stuff every game you can into that box, and don't even look at them. I mean, you kind of want to just like grab them all before everyone else can. And it sounds like a dick move, but that's what you have to do.
That's good advice, though.
It is good advice. And I wish I could take credit for it. But yeah, so you want to grab everything and just look at it later. So you're not going to buy everything just because you put it in your shopping cart, but you do want to pick through it without having to worry about someone snatching it right in front of your eyes. So what was actually posted at this particular estate sale was the guide for Earthbound, which can oftentimes go for as much as the game itself, maybe even more. This guide comes with the scratch and sniff stickers. I'm sure you've heard of it before.
Gosh, awesome.
But yeah, so everyone knew that there was the guide there, and they were predicting that the game itself was going to be there. I was lucky enough to find a bunch of great games that day, along with Earthbound itself. Another guy got to the guide before I could, but I would not have been able to get all these games if I hadn't had that shopping cart, if I wasn't the first person in line. If you want to get these games, you're gonna have to be stern. You know, you can't be nice to everybody. You're gonna have to step on some toes and do your best. But yeah, I think that kind of sums it up for suggestions we have for you guys. Do you have any more, Hannah?
Yeah, kind of. So when you go to garage sales and stuff like that, just be nice to the people that are selling, because they might even give you like a good deal. Just be like, oh, you know, how was your day? Like, have you sold a lot? Blah, 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 blah. Just be nice. That's what I found from the few garage sales that I've been to. Just be nice.
Kindness is definitely the right answer. And another thing at garage sales I totally forgot to mention, when I first started collecting, I was totally worried about like, oh man, these people are going to think I'm like some kind of freaking nerd. Well, it turns out if you're going garage sailing and you're looking for games, you are a nerd, and you need to embrace that. You need to walk up to these people, and if you don't see games, you need to ask them. 100% very important thing. You need to ask the people running the garage sale, hey, do you have any old Nintendo games? Or hey, do you have any old video games in your house? Well, don't say in your house, you know, that might be kind of creepy. But do you guys have any old video games? Just simple question. They say yes or no. You know, whether they laugh at you when you leave is fine. You know, you're never going to see them again, probably.
Right. Don't be shy.
And flea markets, right? We didn't mention flea markets. But I guess that kind of goes into thrift stores.
I don't have a lot of experience with flea markets, actually.
I can tell you that...
None.
Oh, okay. Flea markets are cool. I mean, you might... Same thing. It's going to be hit or miss. There's probably going to be a lot of other collectors there trying to buy games, too. If you live in Houston or a really densely populated area like I do, then there's tons of people selling video games for way higher than eBay. You can get good scores there if you go to a booth that has no idea what they have. I've gotten a few scores, nothing major at flea markets, but I do think, like, if you've ever seen the Game Chasers on YouTube, those guys go to flea markets like every episode, and they've gotten some crazy scores. One of the guys got a little Samson. You know, things can happen, just like at garage sales, just like at thrift stores, just like OfferUp. So I think that's going to wrap it up for our tips for you guys. So what we're going to do at the end of every podcast is just ask a question. We're going to answer it ourselves, and you guys can tell us your opinion in the comments below. So Hannah, what is a game that you would like to see remastered from your childhood?
I think it'll probably be a collection, and a game that I really, really enjoyed was the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series.
Oh my gosh.
I played every single one of them, and they were great. So I'd love to see a collection of them come out for the Switch or the PS4, the Xbox, or whatever. But just a collection of, I think there's 5, a collection of all 5 on the Switch. I would absolutely love that. It would be amazing, and I'd play it like every day.
Absolutely, we need this. Activision, make it happen. You played every single one. Did you play 5?
I think I played 5. I don't own 5. 5 is for the PS3, right?
I think it's on the newest platforms.
Oh, seriously? Oh, shoot. Then I've never played it.
She's lying on the podcast, everyone.
I know. Catch me lying. Call me out in the comments.
No, I think that's probably the worst game in the series. I haven't tried it, but I've heard some awful things. Apparently you can play as Lil Wayne, though. So.
What? Oh, I didn't know that. But anyway, 1 through 4 is good. Those are all good.
I think for me it would be a collection as well. I think to see Rayman 1 through 3 on a modern console remastered for HD, that would be a dream come true. I mean, granted, I would love to see Rayman 4, but I don't think that's coming out ever. So Rayman 1 through 3, and the first game is totally different from the second and third. So if Ubisoft is listening to my brand new podcast for some reason and they want to go ahead and make my dream come true, I'll even take Rayman 2 and 3 remastered. Totally fine by me.
Oh, you'll take that?
So that's going to wrap it up for this first episode of the BDG podcast. Where can the people find you, Hannah?
On Instagram under Game Girl Advance SP.
And on Instagram, I am at ThatGamerNerd, and you can follow Bird Dog Gaming on every other social media at Bird Dog Gaming. We will see you guys next time on the BDG podcast.
See ya.